working. We shall see. Welcome to another Workshop Wednesday. Where am I looking? I have it's one of those days. There you are. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I'm looking at myself over here, and I see myself 30 seconds later. So
over there and up here, and so
apologies.
welcome to Wednesday.
Yes, it is a day, and it ends in Y. So Zoom played some havoc this morning, and with a webinar series like this, you have to make sure that you're continuing to add more occurrences every time. And I thought I was doing that, and the webinar series expired. So anybody who was previously registered for it can't get in. So Kate pointed out today, I cannot log into the webinar. So we are doing the best we can here on such short notice to pivot.
As we often pivot in the land of Intuit QuickBooks as a pro advisor. So here we are pivoting on Zoom. Technology blows.
So you should be able to see it on Facebook and YouTube, our YouTube channel, and in our private groups that have access to the live stream. And you should be able to chat, and I should be able to see it. But anybody who had joined in for the previously webinar where they can participate live, I'm sorry.
Are they stuck in a hole, like the circle?
Oh, they're probably clicking. I was like, why? It says it's expired. What was your experience? It said
this webinar is expired. Please enter new code. And I went through search and make sure I didn't use an old invite or something, and I sent over a text because I would have been sitting there for a while.
Luckily, I got the text before I had to even try it, so it's all good.
There we go. So we are continuing along with our series in payroll fundamentals, and we'll talk about some QuickBooks workflows. Hopefully, they work today. But today, it's actually this fundamental for payroll is pretty an advanced topic. Carrie and I were talking about it prior to the webinar, and there was some confusion as to what it actually is. But it's a core function of payroll, and once I think. And Carrie, correct me if I'm wrong, but once you get this concept, it unlocks. Everything else just kind of seems to make sense. Would you agree?
Right. I agree, and it's important. It's important to understand this concept when you're switching anyone's payroll or setting them up. You really can't skip it. So even though it's advanced, you really need to understand it so you don't screw up.
And Kate, you don't have no idea what we're talking about.
Nope, I'm ready though. Throw it at me.
She's ready.
So this is the concept of wage base, right? So we talked a little bit about deductions last time, and sometimes those deductions will reduce certain taxes and not affect others, right? So this is the concept, at least in QuickBooks terminology, is called wage base. Does ADP have a concept that is it called the same thing in ADP land, or is it called something else?
I'm thinking it's called something else because I don't think I've ever heard the term wage base used over here in the ADP world. So stay tuned. I'll let you know what the ADP version of it is. But I was like, wage base. I'm starting to look through my notes. I'm like, I don't think I've heard of this before.
Yeah. So Carrie, let's go and let's pop into QuickBooks.
Well, I was gonna. Sorry, because I love interrupting. That's just my thing. So just to peel it back one, we all get our W-2 at the end of the year. Well, assuming you work for somebody where you get a W-2. or at some point in your life, and you've always gotten your W-2 where they've got the box for your federal wages, the box for your Social Security wages, Medicare wages, state wages. So that's what we're talking about, is how do you make sure that your W-2 is right at the end of the year? So you've got all these moving parts. And if it's not set up right, obviously you're going to wreak havoc for your tax preparer because you've got a mess. So was that helpful, Dan?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
that is where things kind of present themselves to employees when they look at their W-2 at the end of the year and they see box 1 says federal withholding income subject to tax, and then they look at box 3 that says Social Security wages and see that there's a difference, right? So what Carrie's showing here is QuickBooks Desktop, and it has a really good way to kind of drive this point across here. So when you're looking at, and she's looking at a payroll summary report, which is one of my favorite reports inside of QuickBooks Desktop, even more so than QuickBooks Online. It has a payroll summary, but it doesn't give you as much flexibility as when you're trying to troubleshooting payroll. I said that.
Go
live.
Desktop.
Right.
Okay.
But it gives an idea, and there's two columns or two totals that we can look at to see how this actually plays out. So and really this boils down to how the payroll service, whatever you happen to be using, whether it's ADP or QuickBooks or online or some other service, is going to calculate the right taxes based off of what you did to get to payroll, right? So as we talked about last week, we talked about 401ks, and 401ks, they will reduce the taxability of federal and state withholding, but they don't affect Social Security, Medicare, and any other taxes that are withheld from employees or from the assessed on the employer. So we have go ahead and just let's look at federal withholding down. So if you scroll down a little bit there, Carrie, this report is kind of looked at all of the earnings items at the top. It's by employee. This is just a sample company. We don't know.
We don't really
know.
Dan Miller.
I do know Elizabeth Mason. She is actually a real person.
These people are probably real people somewhere, but
yes. Yeah. She's in Phoenix right now. Anywho, so if you double click on federal withholding, that 800 for Dan Miller, right? You have these two columns here: income subject to tax, and there's our term wage base.
Wage base,
right? And for the most part, in this particular situation where we're just looking at the first quarter of 2025, we're playing time travel here, but that's what a sample company does. We see that the income subject to tax and the wage base are the same for each one,
right?
But we can see, and what we're going to do is we're going to go into a paycheck, which you shouldn't do.
Never do this. This is only for our webinar.
Go into a recorded check and make changes.
Never.
Especially when it has that cleared.
That's the worst. That's really bad. Right. Okay, so we're going to do this.
So disclaimer, this is just for illustrative purposes only.
We will unlock the net pay. Never, ever, ever, ever do this.
All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in the 401k deduction and make it really large so that we can see.
I guess we can make it an amount. I mean, it's doing normally it's 1% and you have things around it, but let's make it like $500 or at the 100. Let's go big.
Let's make it huge.
Right now, pay attention to the check amounts: 1325.67.
Yeah.
Wow.
Boom.
All right.
Okay. Now the withholding amount ended up being zero because it was reducing the wages, for that particular check. So that's just this alert that you're getting here. So go ahead and click OK.
All right.
All right. So now let's click OK and hit and save it.
Save. Never, ever, ever do this.
It warns you to no end. Right.
Right. And there's a reason, but we wanted to do this for illustrative purposes.
Right. So now you see that income subject to tax and wage base went down for this check, which was the 113 check. So the first check of the year, because we added this $500 deduction, it's lowered the wages. And you can see the other checks, which don't have the 401k deduction on it, they're different, right?
Right.
So even though the gross wages was, I don't remember what it was, but which I assume it was 1595. That was their salary, right?
Yep.
But now the income subject to taxes and the wage base was lowered by $500 because of this particular deduction, right? Now, if we go back to the payroll summary report and look at the same check for Social Security,
okay,
right? So Social Security employee, that same check still says income subject to tax and wage base is $1596.15, right? So same check, different items, they affect different amount, or they affect different taxes differently because it's lowering the amount that the calculation is based off.
Box 1 on your W-2 is going to be lower by $500.
Right. Now, what this means is that this is what the wage is calculated on for this particular check. Where this gets pretty gnarly is when you're dealing with like something that has a preset wage base limit, right? And that's going to be something like federal unemployment.
Unemployment.
Right. So if you look at that same check, even though we have lowered the gross wages by $500 with the Social Security, it still says it's at $1596, right?
And then,
but then all of a sudden, and then all of a sudden in April, the income subject to tax is $1596, but the wage base is $615.40.
And if I take this all the way to the end of the year, it continues to be that zero amount. There's, we can't explain why the sample file bounces, but the wage base total 7,000. That is the limit for your FUTA, federal unemployment tax.
But now there's a difference there. Now you can see at the bottom checks for the end of the year, the income subject to tax is $1596, but the wage base is zero, right? So this will play into payroll forms at the end of the year. So when you file your 940, this is a 940, for this particular, when you file your 940, it needs to report, the total wages. So that's the total wages is the income subject to tax. And then there is the taxable wages, which is everyone who reached that
first 7,000
hasn't reached that first 7,000 in wages. So that way it's
very very tricky and fun and a loose word to do this by hand. So to do these 940s by hand, they're fun. I mean, I'm joking. You want it set up right so it tracks it in whatever program you're using. So
and this is kind of one of those things that goes that the payroll services, whichever you choose, will it's their responsibility to do that, right? So the tax tables or whatever it is that you're downloading, like in this case for QuickBooks Desktop, making sure that you have an active payroll service and you download the tax tables so that it knows most of those things, but not everything. Now, Kate, now that we've talked a little bit about what it is, is there an ADP term that equates to wage base versus the income subject to tax?
So we don't have a specific name, but I did have a restaurant company that came on board probably about, gosh, it might have been 2 months ago now. And they knew right off the bat that they would need this to be, adjusted. So our implementation team walked them through it. So personally, I don't know exactly how to set it up. It's something our team does for them, and they take care of it because they don't want to do everything over here at ADP. But there is a way for it to get done this way. Then it's also all taken care of on the W-2s at the end of the year, and everything's logged correctly, and it's not scrambling to figure out what's going on. And this way it doesn't look like income for the business that shouldn't have been.
Because these things can certainly come into play, because a lot of times mid-year, state governments, would say, well, we need more money for our unemployment insurance. So we'll now, instead of the 7,000, we'll maybe raise that to 8 or 9, and they typically do it mid-year.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, usually calendar year, but not always. But it's havoc.
Right. Or they'll change the rate, and then it has to be retroactive as of a certain day, which they tell you after it's already gone into effect or something like that.
And this is funny because the sample file, I was hoping that the state would have a different rate, like South Carolina's higher than 7,000. I think it's like 14. These are the numbers, once you set up, it just rolls forward. But I was kind of surprised their sample, they made it easy. It's 7,000 like the FUTA. So it's the same kind of thing going on. But yeah, there's a lot more to tax than meets the eye.
Yeah. So understanding the idea of wage base, right? And when you're working in QuickBooks Desktop, you have a lot of flexibility on setting some of those things that may or may not be what you want it to do. Like, as Kate pointed out, you don't want to be messing with those things, but QuickBooks Desktop does give you some options sometimes to modify some of these things that you may be, if you know what you're doing, right, you can do a lot of things. And what can happen sometimes is you may need to adjust that wage base to make sure that things are calculated after a certain period of time. Because QuickBooks has a self-adjusting tax feature, which confuses people to no end, right?
So here's the sample. So this drives me crazy. This is why it's so important to set it up right. And when you're recreating payroll in an environment like this, it's important to start with January's checks and move forward. So it looks like what they did was they put in these checks not in order. Now, QuickBooks did do a catch up, and it made sure that the wage base stopped at 7,000 and it collected what it was supposed to. But technically, the wage base, this shouldn't be a 0 here. It should have happened sooner. So this is why I picked up customers that have I've set up my payroll, and they're only setting up active employees, and they're not putting in the history of the people that are actually active that year. And I said, you have to, because it's part of your quarterly return. So you can get yourself in a lot of trouble when you shortcut payroll and don't understand why this is really important.
Right. So hopefully that made some sense of what wage base is and why it's important. It will come up when you do your forms at the end of the year, whether it's the W-2 or the 940 or 941 or your state form, because you'll need to explain the discrepancy between what you paid somebody and what they were taxed on, and the wage basis is where that figure comes from.
And one thing to call out too is this is why it's really important when you're setting up a payroll to understand from, like, you have an insurance person, you need to know, is it pre-tax or post-tax? Because This one right here, this health insurance is a post-tax. That's what deductions from net pay means. It doesn't come off of anything. It's as though you're writing the check yourself. So it's really important to understand what's completely pre-tax, what comes out, so that every one of those boxes is reduced and that's set up properly. So there's a lot of questions that you need to have answered, and often the customer might not know, you might not know. Just get in touch with an accountant as well as your insurance person to find out which one of these truly are a pre-tax benefit, a fully pre-tax benefit, because it makes a big difference in the employee's paycheck, in the company's contribution amount. It's really worth figuring out and setting it up right, so you're not missing out on a really good tax benefit.
Right. And then as far as ADP, Kate, so if there is a what someone might see as a discrepancy, what is the avenue for for somebody who's an ADP customer for that to take place? They contact support and or ADP care, and then they look into the discrepancy. Do they need like proof from the state or something like?
Yeah, they would reach out to ADP Client Services. They would then and they can do that from either right on the portal, just open up a case, or if they want to call in and get like an answer on the spot, they can do either option. And then from there, I personally haven't had to deal with one of these issues, so I'm not sure the exact steps, and I don't want to sit here and lie to you. But I'm assuming they would look into it, get back to you, and then just kind of going back and forth and having that conversation. But the client service team would be the ones that handle that, correct?
But as you're explaining, they can't go in and adjust any of the annual limits or
no. And I think that's because since ADP takes liability for everything, that they want to make sure that they're the ones handling that part. This way, we can't let every client go and change things. And if they do get fines or they do get something from the IRS, like ADP is responsible to pay that fine, because that's just part of the package when they come on board with ADP. So I would say if I had to guess, I'd say that's the reason why I can't just go in and change it.
Yeah, it's like a tamper-proof bottle.
Yep.
For prescriptions.
Exactly.
And I think that's really why when you're in this converting or setting up or, whatever, new payroll or, current payroll, it's so important to understand benefits that employees are given. Because I had a customer who had some pre-tax and post-tax, some 401k that does a little of it's not taxable on everything, but some things. So it's really important that you document and understand and confirm. Don't just assume that you have this figured out. Because like I'm looking at this health insurance and I'm thinking they probably did that wrong.
Yeah.
If it's employee health insurance, they should have gotten a pre-tax deduction on that. So it's just important that you take that time to, I've gone into customers where they've had it set up wrong. And let's say you're going to move them from something over to, ADP or here, you've got to make sure it's set up right in the beginning, and understand the ramifications of not doing it right. It's a nightmare.
Yeah. You don't want to be on the short end of a wage-based discrepancy, because usually there's a notice that goes along with it.
Yeah, the price for trying to, we have customers that are like, oh, payroll's so easy, I'll do it myself. I can do payroll too. It's not that easy. And if you set it up wrong and you make one mistake in haste, it's a nightmare to undo. And those penalties end up costing you more than if you had just paid for a service. So, it's an area to understand and be very, very, very careful. You don't want to mess up an employee's check.
Right. So if we haven't scared you enough about doing payroll, but again, I think once I truly understood, the difference between income subject to tax and wage base and what you can do, it really just unlocks what happens post entering transactions, right? So post entering the paychecks, how that flows into where these numbers come from, and validate one certain form over another, and you can
Mhm.
and you can really do a lot of troubleshooting when you know where the number should be coming from. And on most payroll forms, it's going to be the sum total of the wage base for either all employees or certain employees, or depending on the form, right?
Right.
So you were going to say, or
No, I go to scare tactics.
oh,
No,
don't
what I was gonna say is that the reason you need to understand this is because whatever point in time your customer is going to convert over, you have to make sure you tie down those numbers and that they make sense so that you can set it up in the new environment. You can't just wing it. It's not going to, even Dan, when people go from desktop to online or back and forth, it doesn't just smoothly. You've got to
How's that again?
understand. Well, people think because it's QuickBooks that it's interchangeable and you can just pick which one you want today, and it's not like that. So
Right.
Payroll is its own little monster of subscription, and there's different flavors, and not all of them, it's all based on
All
your
equal.
setup. They're not all equal, and it doesn't just hop from one program to another. You've got to touch it. You've got to set it up. So
So if you have, those that are watching, in whatever fashion, if you have, a question about wage base or a horror story,
Yeah.
go ahead and put that in the comments. So go ahead and stop sharing your
Okay.
screen, and we'll move on to next topic, which is, where did you guys go? There you are. Okay. Every time you stop sharing it, just like resets the Zoom window. So the we mentioned it a couple weeks ago. There's a new app in town called Spreadsheet Sync, and we wanted to talk a little bit more in detail about what it actually does and what you can do. Because as I'm learning more about it, it is very robust. But sad to say, Gary, it's only a QuickBooks Online.
But it's
feature,
only online advanced.
And it's only online advanced, right? So, as far as how much to pay for it, it's free if you're using online advanced. If you're not using online advanced, you can't even use it, right? But it does a lot of the things that QuickBooks Desktop did with regards to Excel. So I wanted to share my screen. Let's see. Oh, no. There we go. What did I choose? Where'd it go?
You're all over the place.
I am all over the place. Let's move all this stuff all over. Okay, so this is just Excel, right?
Yeah.
And I'm going to stop sharing because I had QuickBooks Online open somewhere. There it is. Okay.
It's always easy to find after you unshare.
Yeah, there it is. So let's share it again. Okay. Make sure I get the right screen. There we go. Okay, should see online, QuickBooks Online here, right?
Yep.
Okay, so to access it, it's from the gear menu, and there's an option called Spreadsheet Sync. If you don't see this option from the gear menu, Spreadsheet Sync, you are not in QuickBooks Online Advanced, right? So, so accountants using QuickBooks Online Accountant have it because your books is in Advanced, is in QuickBooks Online Advanced. So all accountants should have access to this, right? And that means that they can access to all their online advanced clients, right? So when you click on it, it brings up this thing. It says, just in a few steps, you allow the browser to open the link, and then in Excel, you trust the add-in, and then you sign into Spreadsheet Sync using your Intuit user ID. So that's a best practice. In order for this to work properly, you need to use the same Intuit ID for all of your online clients that you can use this with. So if you have multiple logins like I do, don't you have one login associated with one client and then another login associated with another, and expect the Spreadsheet Sync to be able to connect them both. All right, so I'm just going to hit let's go, and as it says, it's going to open Excel, which is now on another screen. Where to go? Where's Excel? There you are. All right, so I'm just going to open up a blank workbook here. And I was so excited about this that I actually, okay, how do I open new? There we go. Create, it's all the way down here. Geez, wait, what's going on? And I actually purchased, I purchased Excel just to see what this was all about. Now I've locked up my Excel. Great.
My Excel was acting up too. It might be an Apple, to the point where I had to kind of walk away from it. Technology Wednesday, right?
All right, come on, force quit. Where is it?
Right there is quit. Oh.
I know, but it's still here.
Oh yeah.
It's just binking at me. All right. So,
all
right.
There you go.
Be gone. All right. Yeah, no, I'm not going to report anything. Oh, now it's back up again. There we go. It's on the other screen. There it comes back. So it was trying to open up twice. That's what was happening. Okay. So what will happen is once you've set this up, you can actually run things directly from Excel. You don't have to be in QuickBooks Online to utilize this. So we're going to just hit the launch add-on. Get rid of the force quit here. All right. And I'm gonna wait. There it is. I'm gonna sign out just to make sure. This is what will happen. It'll ask you to sign in. And then, you're doing everything all in Excel at this point. So it's not even connecting, or you're not even needing to be in QuickBooks Online at this point. It's showing my password. That would have been horrible.
Whoops. ...
Same as everybody else. And once it signs in, yeah.
Select your company.
All right, so it's going to give you the option to, what do you want to connect it to? Right. Or you can install it for your firm, and then it's going to give you, all of your clients that you can connect it to. Now, this guy, I know he does not have advanced, right? So I'm going to say next. I'm going to try to connect. Watch it work, which would be funny.
because
Yeah, so Excel connection can only be established for QBO advanced companies. So
okay.
Try again, so I can sign in. And I'm just going to reattach it to my firm. And then once you attach it to, connect it to a company, then it'll just be there, right? Like once you sign in, you can hit get started. And then what do you want to do? You want to build a report, or you can manage records. So you can build a report. Let me go back here. Forget where that is now. So, all right. So you can build it with your data. There's some advanced templates in there, or you can use an existing file. So here I have 2 different companies, and then you can create a group, right? So then you can group companies together and then run these reports across multiple companies. So this gives you the flexibility or the ability to run financial reports across multiple companies. And what it's doing is it's putting it directly into Excel so that you can use the magic of Excel, if you're more comfortable with Excel, to run pivot tables, show graphs and charts, all on that data that comes into Excel. So if I was going to use this, I don't know what information I have in that file. It's just all sample stuff. But you have, the special reports. So you can see profit and losses, the accountant reports, there's business overview. So all of the reports that, you can typically send to Excel, you can do it through the Spreadsheet Sync, and then use Excel to do that. Now, the nice part is, let's say I wanted this AR aging detail report. I get it. So now you can select the data to get, right? So you can set up some filters. You can maybe do periods and whatnot. This is for the AR aging. So I'm just going to add it to the current sheet. There's nothing. Great. Gotta find something to bring in here. I'll bring in this one. So what did I choose? Amount, accounts receivable. AR aging detail. Choose it. Misspelled report. Report date. We'll
Oh, nice. That's what happens with beta.
All right. All right. So here's a accounts receivable detail report in Excel. Right. Now, if I save this, let's see how do I save this as AR report. Beautiful company. I'm going to save it in my documents. And then I close the Excel spreadsheet and go back into my documents. Where are you? Documents.
There it is.
I can launch this report. And if I had a specified report filter already built into it, I could go into, now the Spreadsheet Sync is now part of Excel. I could just click on, update, refresh the report, right? And it would go back to the QuickBooks Online and pull the current data and update it automatically just from Excel. So I wouldn't necessarily have to go into my QuickBooks, into the client to be able to, reset up the connection between Excel and QuickBooks. So this is something that QuickBooks Desktop already did do, right? So most people didn't even know about it. So once you send a report to Excel, you can click a button to refresh data from that Excel spreadsheet. So now this puts that on par with desktop, Gary.
Well, I didn't know it did it with desktop.
Well, that's how much you use that.
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm thinking out loud. Goodness, there's a lot I could be doing with that. But yeah.
Now and now you can do it in online advanced as well.
Yeah.
Another option is managing records. So if you need to update, so I see this a lot with sometimes things are just put in on the wrong date, or there's mass things that you need to to update. So let me see it here. You go for the beautiful company. This allows you to either create transactions in Excel and then push them to QuickBooks, or grab transactions from the existing file, make modifications, and send those modifications back to QuickBooks. So there we are. So this is just an invoice and bill, right? So this will be starting from scratch, right? So we can just, I'm going to choose to bring in existing, not from the beginning of time, because that's probably a lot. Let's say this month. Let's get this guy out of here so we can actually see. It's thinking. I don't know if you can see that down in the lower right there. The green bar is moving across, but it's going into the QuickBooks company file and pulling, all of the invoices and bills for last month or this month. Hopefully we have some data to see here. There we go. So every transaction now is here for this month. right? And we can, I don't know, this is really hard to see, break out your magnifying glass, but every column here is possibly, can be modified. So if you wanted to change the customer or change the item that's actually on these invoices, you could do that. These are actually pulling from the company
Oh, nice.
itself. Yeah. So right here in Excel. So you can change your quantities, and then all you have to do to send it back is change this post to yes, right? And then
Oh,
if you wanted to, you could copy that down, using Excel. Like, okay, we're gonna do change that, and then post the data to QuickBooks. Now I'm not going to do that because that's that's actually changing somebody's live data. Right, but that is how you can modify a lot of transactions all at once using Excel. Especially if you're more comfortable using Excel, it's a lot easier to work with batch transactions in this way. So you currently can do that with invoices and bills, journal entries, the chart of accounts, purchases and sales receipts, purchase and sales receipts. So that'll be sales receipts for and the vendors and customers, inventory items, classes, departments, purchase orders, and time activity, employees, and estimates. So it opens up a lot of transactions and lists that can put it on par again with desktop, because in desktop you have a lot of batch enter transactions or voiding or deleting transactions, as well as the add, edit, list elements. So you can use this to do a lot of things in short order once you get used to using it. So what we've done at School of Bookkeeping is we've created a small mini course, and then we'll continue to enhance on that. All the things that you can do. So maybe we'll use some use cases of, hey, what can you actually do this with Spreadsheet Sync? So if you have a does it do this type of thing, go ahead and put that in the comments, and then on a future workshop maybe we'll try to make that happen.
sounds good.
What do you think, Carrie? Was that cool or what?
That's real cool. And I can already think of how to use this in my desktop. And how did I not know that this was a thing? So there we are. There we are.
All right. So
Big time saver. Definitely worth digging into, testing out, doing a sandbox, seeing. Yeah, definitely worth spending your energy learning how to do this. Yes.
And Kate, I know you're like,
Wow.
you're CDO, you're so OCD, you put it in alphabetical order.
You guys would know best. I have everything all lined up, color coded, organized. I enjoy watching this and seeing how it all maneuvers. As organized I am, I definitely don't like Excel, but it's so helpful. It is so helpful.
Yeah, once I remember working with a guy at Intuit, and he loved Excel to no end. And I was always very timid of doing something in Excel. And he's like, if you know what you're doing in Excel, you can make it do so many things.
Mm-hmm.
Utilizing formulas and calculations, lookup table, all the things that you have to Google to learn about.
Yep.
It is really a powerful program and tool, to be able to manipulate data, and a lot of accountants and bookkeepers really rely on doing stuff in Excel rather than, because of the limitations of what you can and can't do inside of the program.
Mm-hmm.
So this really, now opens that door to the bridging the two, rather than now I need an app or something to, push this back in. Now that I've got it into Excel, and you still may need that for limitations that it can't do.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular starting point is a high, it's a high bar, right? Like it's already, met my expectations of what I was expecting to see. And like, oh great, yeah, this is great. You can send it to Excel. How is that different than any other report builder? So the ability to bring in bringing in data from multiple entities. They don't even have to be related. Being able to manipulate data and send it back to QuickBooks really just now opens up a lot of possibilities of working with the data itself inside of QuickBooks Online. But we have almost taken this workshop to an hour.
Yeah.
So we better cut it off.
That's right.
So next week we'll I don't know what we're going to do, if we're going to start another webinar or if we'll do it inside of our streaming service. Stay tuned for that. We'll figure that out.
For technology.
So, hopefully we'll see you next week on the workshop. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a